Hi, my name is Rem, and welcome to the series where we build real web application with React and Node.js. In this episode, we'll continue to working with Goodreads API and we'll save the book into our database. And alongside, we'll at last start working with Redux Store and we will normalize our data. So before we begin, I want to make an announcement, huge announcement for me, very exciting. So a couple of days ago, I launched the jsfullstacker.com, and if you go there, you will see the timer, the countdown timer that counts down to publishing my own premium course. So it's very near. I'm very close to the release, and that's very exciting. So it counts down like 6 days, but we'll see how it goes because maybe banks and legal stuff can delay it a little bit, but I'm doing my best work right now to make it on time. Also, I'm re-recording some of the content of the course, so it will use the latest React 16th version. So that's one of the ideas, to make it evergreen, which is pretty cool. So if you're interested, if you find it interesting, just go to this website, sign up to my newsletter and get the first chapter of the course for free. That's 35 minutes of content about React components. Not shabby. So, and yeah, don't hesitate to let me know what you think about it, your comments. Anything like that will be very much welcomed. Also, I want to thank my patrons, and I want to give a shout out to Ape and Helio. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your names right. Guys, thank you very much for your activity on the forum, for your questions, for your discussions, for your code snippets. It's really great, and yeah, thank you very much for that. If you want to be part of it, just a small donation, become a patron on the Patreon page, down in the links in the description below, or make a one-time PayPal donation. Okay, so let's get down to the development. So what we have right now here is that we can go to add new book and we can search for books from the Goodreads, but when we choose one, we do not have pages because Goodreads for some reason doesn't provide pages for us. So we need to make another request to the Goodreads to get this data. So that's what we're gonna do first, and along the way we're gonna fix some errors and see some caveats with JavaScript Boolean stuff. Yeah. So let's do this. So let's go to React Code and let's go to new book page. So here is where we set in state when we select the book. So now we need to extend it a little bit. So I'm gonna enclose it in the parents. And right after I set the state with the book, right after that, I want to make the request. So I'm gonna import Axios from Axios, because I'm still doing the heresy. I'm doing it right here without any actions. So what we did before, we made the request to our server, and our server made the request to Goodreads and then handled the request. Why not to do that right from the React application? Well, there is no reason not to do it. You can do it actually, but there are two ways you should think about. If you go to the server code here and we go to our routes books. Yep. So right here you can see that we have Goodreads key. That's a secret information. So as you can see, I actually extracted it into the environment variable. And you don't want to store it on the client side. But if you really want to, you can use environment variables in React application with the help of Create React App package as well. Another thing is, you need to parse XML. So for example, if Goodreads provided good JSON API, we could just take the data in the client and parse it without any problem. But here we have XML, so we need to, to add another dependency just for this parsing thing, which is not a good thing to do on a client, in my opinion. So that's another thing. So instead, we do everything on the server, all the calculations, right? So let's delete these comments from here. But you can try to do it from the client, from the React app. Okay, so let's do the Axios get request to API books, and we call it, let's say, fetch pages. And we pass the parameter. Okay, I always forgot to enclose it into different quotes like this. And we provide the Goodreads ID to equal to book Goodreads ID. So that's what we send to our server. And from server, as we control it, we can have any kind of response. So we can shape it. So in this case, response data, we call it pages. And after that, what I want to do, we have pages. I want to set state. I want to set state for the book. And I want to take all the book information that I already have and then override pages. Pages, not override, there is no pages, they are undefined right now. And that will become quite important, I think, in a couple of minutes. Okay, so now we're making the request. So let's go to the server and we create this fetch pages route. Let's copy this route here and let's change it to fetch pages. So first of all, let's get the Goodreads ID from request query Goodreads ID. So now here we're making another request. Instead of search, we're going for the book/show.xml. The key is the same, and instead of query, we pass the ID, this Goodreads ID. So in the result, we have the same thing. You can go to the Goodreads API and have a look how it works and what it responds with. I've already done this job to not waste our time. So here, instead of books, we'll have pages. And here to get these pages, we get the book, and inside of this book, we'll have num pages. So that's what we take. Everything else we can just simply remove. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's try to find a book. And yeah, after a second or so, we have our pages in there. We got a lot of errors, 4 errors. And one of the errors that I want to point out is this one at the bottom. Book form is changing and on a control input of type number to be controlled. So this controlled and uncontrolled stuff, on my YouTube channel, you can find controlled and uncontrolled elements in React if you need to learn about them. But basically, I said earlier that pages are undefined. Right here. So the pages are undefined until we set them here. So we set them here, no pages at all, and then we set them here. And in book form, we have these pages, and we set them on this element, pages, right here in input. But this value will be undefined, and that means that React doesn't control it. But then it becomes defined, and now it's a controlled element. So it's kind of confusing for React. So we shouldn't do that. So one way to fix this is just to comment this thing out. So if we comment this out and we do the same thing, it will fix it, but we will have the delay. So I click, I have a delay because I'm making another request, and then I just populate the whole thing, and that's why I do not have this error anymore. But that's not the best experience for the user, I think. So I already have this data, I want to immediately show them, and while user just scrolling down, bam, pages are already there. So it's much better experience. So that's not a way for me to go. What I need to do is to make it, to get rid of this particular thing, this particular error with controlled and uncontrolled stuff. So there are different ways to do that. And one of the ways that we want to do, we could do, is to check it here. So if data pages is there, then we have data pages. Otherwise, for example, we have 0. So this way, it always controlled. So that will get rid of this particular error. 0 and then 159. Nice, and we do not have this error anymore. Okay, that works, but still I don't like it. This 0 and then another value. What if we have this book without any pages? Okay, it seems to work, 0 pages. So why I choosing this thing is because if you go to the network here, you will see that it returns empty string, which is not a good thing because we want to get number out of it. Also here as well, we do not have number, we have string, and that's why we have an error here as well. So let's fix this. So here is book pages is marked as required. It's undefined. That's one error that we need to fix. And when we at last pass pages to it, we pass string instead of a number. That is not good. So let's fix the thing with number. So let's go back to server, and here it's very easy to do, right? We'll just parse int, and that's it. We have a number, except one edge case. So now if we choose the book, let's reload the page just to count our errors. Okay, we have 2 errors left. Nice. So this particular error is gone. But if we choose without pages, we'll have another error again. It's required, but it's null. And it's null because we have empty string. It tries to convert it to int. It can't do that. So we need to fix it as well on the server. So let's do it like this. So I'm gonna enclose this into parentheses. And after that, I will define new constant, num pages. Just gonna take this stuff out of here. And then if num pages, then I want to convert it to parse int num pages. Otherwise, 0. Okay, and I'm gonna set it to pages. And here I'm gonna just remove everything from here. Okay, so num pages, if it's an empty string, it's the same. It's false in JavaScript. Go figure. But empty string is false, so we do not need to do anything else. We just check num pages. If it's not empty, then we parse int. Otherwise, it's 0 for us. So 0 pages. We have no information. Okay, so that's good. We get rid of this particular error, but we got another one. So here we have the error message that book pages is marked as required, but we passed the book without pages first, so we need to fix it. And to do that, of course, we're going to remove this is required stuff. Another thing that I want to do, I don't like this thing. I don't like this 0. Let's do it a little bit differently. Let's say that I want to say loading. And I'm going to change type from number to text, no big deal. And here I will add disabled. And disabled is going to be not data pages. So if pages are not defined, it's disabled, we see loading. When we got pages back, we got the result. Okay, so let's have a look. I just want to, while I still want to do it as real world as possible, I still want to be it as an educational stuff. So I show you different things, different gotchas, etc. So it would be much more useful for you. So now when I do that, okay, I missed it. We had loading, right? So let's do another reach that, put it. We have loading, and when it's done, we have pages. Nice. But if we go to Harry Potter here without pages, nothing happens. So we do not get this 0 that is actually returned to us, 0 pages, but we do not have it right here. Why? Because JavaScript. It's JavaScript. So 0 is also false in JavaScript, and that's why we have this problem. And this is a very common problem. Not common, but sometimes it just happens and you just scratch your head and think, why? And that's why. 0 is false. So that's why we should actually check for unidentified. So we can do undefined. Okay, so if data page is undefined, then it's disabled. Otherwise, 0, other kind of value is there, it's not. It's enabled. And here as well, undefined. If it's not undefined. Let's have last test. So here, loading, nice. Okay, I'm gonna just a little bit space here. Harry Potter, nice, 0. Okay, cool. So we got one last error left, and that's I added fluid in the book form. Okay, let's search for fluid. Okay, so grid, yeah, grid can't have this attribute here. Okie doke. Okay, so now that we handle this thing, let's go to the next thing that we need to implement, saving book into the database. But before we do that, we need to actually design our database schema and design our data and how we would connect different types of entities. And that's what we're gonna do next. So we start simple as usual, but we still need to have a connection between user and books, right? So book belongs to user, user could have a lot of books. And we will create new entity book. We will create new model book. So in Mongoose, you always have to, in MongoDB, you always have two options. You either embed everything in one document, or you create separate documents and then connect them via IDs. And in this particular case, these are two separate entities. So we have user, separate entity, book, separate entity. So usually I embed only the entities that can't live without each other, right? So we need to create a book model in our, right here. So let's create book.js. So we'll import Mongoose from Mongoose, and we define schema, const schema equals new Mongoose schema. Okay, so here we're gonna have it, and let's export default right away. Schema, Mongoose model, and we call it book, and we use schema for it. Okay, so what do we need to have? So we have title, that's type string, and it is required. And let's copy several times because we have the same thing with authors. It's required, it's a string. We'll have cover, the same thing. We have Goodreads ID. I think it's not required. Maybe later we will ditch the Goodreads. They're just an experiment. Maybe we will have the complete form for our books instead of the Goodreads API. Okay, so we have Goodreads ID. Pages, that's a number, also required. And the last one is user ID. So who is the owner of this book? It's very important because we could have a lot of users, and we just need a way to fetch the books for a particular user. And the user ID will be the type of object ID. And for that, we'll use mongoose.schema.types.object ID. Required, oh man, d. So this is our schema. So now to use it in our books here, so we will have two routes. We'll have post route to create a book, and we'll have get route to get all the books of the user. So let's define it right away. Usually I start from front end, but now it's pretty simple code, and we can do it and test it later. So we'll have route a post for books. And the first thing that we need to do is to get user, because in our middleware, in Authenticate, we only have user email in our request. So we need to get user. And actually to think about it, we always need to get user to get any kind of details about any kind of books, shelves. We'll have different things, the tags that user created. So we need to have user all the time, almost all the time. So let's do the thing that I talked earlier when we developed this authenticate middleware. Let's store actual current user in this request object. So instead of this code, we'll let's import user from models user, and let's set user find one by email, and we'll use decoded email, and then we'll have user, and we'll set request dot current user equals to user, and then we'll have next. So this way, when we authenticate, we make the request to the database, find the user, and store it in the request object, and we can use it in all routes that is authenticated. So here, all the routes and books are authenticated. So now in this request object, we have current user. That makes our life a little bit easier. So now we need to create a book. So let's import book from models book, and let's create one. So we'll have book create, and then we need to pass down the book details in request body a book. And not only that, we could do it like this, right? Book. But not only that, we need to expand it with the user ID. So again, there are two ways to do that. We can make it via client to include it through the client, or we can do it on the server. I prefer to do it on the server because here I know exactly that this is the current user because it's authenticated, it's a valid token. So that's why I just totally trust it. I do not trust client. So client could just change the ID anytime to any kind of other user. So that's why we do it right here. So we'll expand it with user ID. So we'll have the content of the book, and then we'll have user ID to equal request current user dot ID. So after that, we'll have the book itself, and what we want to do, we want to JSON book back. But if we have any kind of errors, like validation error, we need to catch things. So we'll have the catch. So let's go to other route that we have already I think in users. Yeah, we have this catch. So I'm going to just copy and paste it because I'm lazy. Okay, so catch here. And I need to have this parse errors. So I'm going to import parse errors from utils parse errors. Okay, so this is the post. What about getting books? Easy peasy. So we're going to have request get book. And again, we need to find all books with the user ID. So we'll do book, find, and we say user ID to equal request current user underscore ID. So then we have books, and we just respond JSON books with it. Okay, so we have everything we need on the backend. I hope it works. So let's go back to the client.